Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for all being so prompt. We'll commence the webinar shortly. Thank you.
Should we turn our videos on?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I hope my background is
Hey, pizza. Is pizza still there?
Chairman, good afternoon.
How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. I think there's a little delay. Let me see. I can sort out my connection.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Most of very, very impressive people have already logged on. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll try and start promptly. We hope to get the rest of our speakers coming as sessions. Right. Good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you very much for joining, and we're very welcome to our session today on intellectual property for creatives and entertainers, protecting your talent, hosted by Norfolk Partners. My name is Idowola of Norfolk Partners, and I am honored to be joined today by some very, very capable hands, some movers and shakers, some titans of the various creative and entertainment industries. So, to join in our discussion about protecting the creative assets of our creatives and our entertainers. So just before we begin, a few housekeeping matters to take care of. Slide, please. There's a bit of a lag. So, of course, many of you know our distinguished speakers from our posters. We have a stellar lineup of speakers, and we are grateful for them being part of this webinar. I will, of course, be at a later point in the webinar making their personal introductions, and my colleagues on the other panels will also do the same. So our housekeeping matters. First of all, this a recorded version of this webinar will be available. So kindly please leave your contact details at the end of the webinar on the end questionnaire, and we will send you a link to that. Of course, it is a live webinar, so kindly put your microphones on mute when you're not speaking, so there's no interference. It is an interactive webinar, and so we're going to have between 6 to 10 minutes of question and answers at the end of each panel. So please send in your questions in the chat window, and we'll pick them up from there to take during the question and answer session. And finally, it is as I said earlier, it is an interactive webinar. But we're not interested in lecturing you or giving you theories of law. We're interested in speaking to real life scenarios that creatives face day in, day out. And to that end, we've curated 3 case studies, 2 real case studies and 1 fictional, help us elicit the experiences of our speakers and our expertise in solving the problems that exist in these studies. A bit of the legal disclaimer: we are not instructed by any of these individuals. The information in these case studies is freely available to the public, and to that end, we use that information to elicit the experience and the expertise of our speakers in a way that can benefit our audience. And now a bit of signposting, so we all understand the structure for today. As I've said, it is an interactive webinar with 3 segments. The first is film and TV segment. Second is music industry, and the third is fashion and design segment. Each segment is prefaced with a short video montage between 2 to 4 minutes long, essentially to premise the conversation within the panel discussions. Each short video, as I said, is about 2 to 4 minutes long. We envisage 1 single session to be about 30 minutes, and split into 20 minutes for the discussions and 10 minutes for Q&A. At various points in time, we will introduce polls to just take a feel for our audience and your perception or your perception of IP rights at the start of the webinar and at different points as we go on with the information that we share to our panel to ourselves. We hope to be finished by about 2:50 this afternoon. So hold on. Cracking on. At this point, I just want to check if our lead speaker is in, so she can give her introductory remarks. I'm just checking to see if Joker Silva is already in the webinar. Good afternoon, Joker.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ido. How are you?
I'm excellent. And yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. Okay.
So, we glad for your introductory remarks at this point.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. When Patrick and May, the senior partners of Norfolk and Partners, wanted me to be part of a webinar, I was like, are we not all webinarized out of our skulls? You know, one webinar after another webinar after another webinar. But can you hear me?
Very clearly.
Excellent. So, but then when they told me what the topic was, which is about intellectual properties and how it, the conversation is for creatives and entertainment, and how we are affected by intellectual property, I felt, okay, definitely, let's have the conversation. For years, especially in our own department, music has done excellently. They've done really well. But for us in movies and theater, in the cultural sector, we've worked so hard for decades, and with very little returns. But when there was this was it basing that it was called by under the Okonjo-Iweala, and there was this in 2015, and the entertainment sector was quantified in naira and kobo. The whole country then marveled at the impact of the entertainment sector on the economy and on the job market. The truth is that the recognition is important, and not just for this, not just for the sake of recognition or even the financial quantification that comes with it, but so that we can upscale, level up, and improve on those things we have always done. But now we do them with the benefit of specialized services that add value and quality to our craft and processes. Whether it is the benefit of better project financing, which is coming by God's grace, or improved legal services to protect the work we create, these improved services add value to what we creatives do. And I'm happy to support and celebrate that any day. Today, we're talking about protecting the intellectual property in the content we create. A very important conversation I am happy is becoming more and more prevalent. I'm happy to share my experiences, and I truly hope you will all benefit from the wealth of knowledge and experiences that will be shared today. And I also believe that we all will learn. We all will learn a lot from whatever conversation that we have today. So let's have an interesting and sharing time. Thank you so much, Ido. Over to you.
Excellently well said, Ma. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Those introductory comments. So back to our theme for today: protecting creative assets that creators and entertainers make day in, day out. Essentially, the conversation in Black and White Plain is about how creators and entertainers like yourselves can essentially secure the bag through their intellectual property. In order for us to set the tone for our discussion today, we'd like to show a brief introductory video, which essentially frames our thoughts on the value of your craft and the intellectual property that you create from your work. We'll run the introductory video now.
So what is your idea worth? A few hours of work? 1,000,000 hours of work? Well, in 1963, the Beatles wrote From Me to You, It's 1 minute and 56 seconds long, shorter than this video. It was the Beatles' first #1 song in the UK and topped the charts for 7 straight weeks. That 116 seconds long song is worth millions today. The longest artwork ever created was created by 8,000 students. It took 8 months to finish. Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel and Last Judgment was finished over 33 years. How do you put a price on that? But is it just about money in the bank? Secure the bag, yes, please. But what about your work's identity? In October 2020, Ayo Balogun, also known as Wizkid, released his Made in Lagos album to critical acclaim. However, by May 2021, the Made in Lagos album's track names had been copied track by track, virtually identically, on a little known artist, Wizkid's album called Lasgidi Made. Wizkid, whose real name is Hosea Yohana, had supposedly racked up 9.3 million views before promptly being deleted off all notable music media. Oh, and by the way, Wizkid allegedly cost Wizkid 30 million a month from October 2020 till sometime in April 2021. Is that even legal? That's not even stealing the bag. That's someone stealing the bank. So what is your idea worth? We know this is $1 million question. The simple answer is, it's worth nothing. If you do nothing with it, put nothing into developing it, and if you do nothing to secure it. Hashtag secure the IP bag. But Norfolk Partners also knows it is infinite. Your idea becomes what it is in proportion to what you put into developing, protecting, and securing it. It becomes infinite.
Okay, so that's essentially the crux of our conversation today. The little known, or not so little known anymore, but the undervalued sector of intellectual property and the creative industry that backs that. So following our short introductory video, we'd like to run the first poll just so we get a feel for pulse of our audience and their perceptions or their perspective of intellectual property, especially based on the little story in the introductory video. So we just run the poll quickly and give some comments on that. Thank you very much. I see some comments coming in already. We'll run the first poll. Sorry, we'll just get this sorted in a moment. Okay, we'll come back to the poll in a short moment, but we'll proceed with the first panel. First panel. Okay. It's my honor to moderate this first panel. The panel is on film and TV. As I said earlier, I'm quite honored to be joined by what I would say is entertainment industry royalty. And I'm also quite honored to host this panel because we have such a wealth of knowledge on display. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce an iconic legend of the Nigerian film, TV, and theater industry, a consummate professional, an award-winning actress, and I particularly like this accolade that's associated with her, the silver lining of Nigerian TV. Someone who, in fact, needs no introduction, Joke Silva.
Hello, good afternoon.
Afternoon again.
Okay, it's done with the- Hello.
Our next speaker is someone you could say is, in fact, Nollywood's current sweetheart, one of the hottest performers on the scene currently. He is, I would say, the face of Nollywood's new aspirations. Koye, yes?
I don't know about all that.
Someone who has the looks and the performance, but also the mind to back up his performances. He's a qualified lawyer himself, Koye Keiten Kikere.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Koye. My penultimate speaker on this panel is a film producer, an actor, and a director, to mention some of the accolades that are attached to his name, and someone that represents the tenacity of what it means to succeed in Nollywood today. Mr. Peter Oke. Good afternoon, Peter. I think you're still on mute.
Oh, okay. Hi, hello. I'm not an actor yet, but the other thing, yes. I'm honored to be here amongst such esteemed company. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And final panelist on this session is a pioneer looking to claim a space that Africans are not necessarily known for dominating. Mr. Tolu Olufweku is the Chief Technology Officer of Kugali Media. And Kugali Media's exploits and their audacity in telling the African story has, in fact, attracted big names, including Disney, in their collaboration. So, Mr. Tolu, thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Very much. So, I will crack on. So I'm immediately tempted to ask, hands up, anyone who has been in our protagonist situation, for in the case study, Mr. Peter Barua, anyone who has ever had their script stolen or an idea from their script stolen. But I'm going to rein my my temptation in and ask. I'll direct my first question to Peter. Okay.
Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon, Peter.
Idea story. I mean, it's a deep story, but I'll just keep it short because I was working among people that I'd known for years. So I felt like, oh, this it's like a brotherhood. I've known you guys for over 5-6 years. We can just come together and do something. And then as we're filming, and then they realized the potential of whatever. And we're already at the editing stage, and then people are like, this thing was my idea. It was not your idea. You just said one thing and the rest of it was mine and stuff like that. And I'm like, we didn't have this argument, this discussion in the beginning, and I didn't sign anything with them. So there was a back and forth with that. And at the end of the day, long story short, I had to, like, when the finances came, I left it like, okay, you know what, you guys have it. I'll have other ideas. Disperse the funds, how you want. If you want to do another season, I'm not interested anymore. Other things will come. So I needed this, definitely need this, because I can be sentimental when it comes to people I've known for a while. I'm like, why do I need to sign something with my guy? But when it comes to this, it's also a business. So I'm just a pure creative, and I have ignored the business aspect and the legal aspect to this field. So this will be very useful to me.
So, excellent. So we have live experience of a situation where it has been disputed copyright that you actually created, or you were part of creating. So I'll follow on from there. My next question is to Joke. Following on from Peter's response, I think it's to our audience's benefit that we have such a wealth of knowledge from Peter redefining and attempting to disrupt traditional means of film production, to yourself, Joke, who has been through all the changes from the early days of the Nigerian film industry to today, where technology is actively disrupting the industry, both poignant and relevant to our audience today. So, Joke, how was this in the earlier days of the Nigerian film industry, and how did you deal with sharing scripts and work with potential collaborators and partners?
In early days, there really wasn't that much. There really wasn't that much fear of your work being copied by another, by somebody else within the industry. The people working, there were not that many people who were working, and everybody knew everybody else. So there really wasn't that much of intellectual property theft until, like you said, there now came this technology where we went into the home video era. And what you then got was a lot of piracy. We've been hit by piracy before. Our first film, The Kingmaker, we got a lot of people, we pulled together finance for it. And after the release, after the premiere of The Kingmaker, it was pirated by one of the marketers who actually called, who I met at a function, who looked me in the eye and told me, he said, that your film sold a lot. We really sold, we pirated. And I'm like, do you realize how many, the lives that you practically destroyed, with this? And so for a lot of people, it drove them away from producing any work, because we just felt that there was no recourse. You'd go to court. There was, DSTV, a lot of works that were shown on DSTV were pirated. And so for me, what I'm hoping to get from our conversation today and to hear from Norfolk partners is that what can be done to the pirates? Because everybody keeps saying that, because of the new technology, the pirates are not that important anymore. But they are limiting the effect of a Netflix, for instance, because if there were enough, if the piracy laws that we have in the country were being enforced, then more people would get onto Netflix, would get onto the streaming services, would get onto the DSTVs of this world. But because they can buy these things, they can get them So I don't know. So I am looking forward to this conversation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm going to piggyback on. I'm going to piggyback on that question, on your response. So I'd like to ask. I mean, you've touched on the main significant changes today. How technology is supposed to change or reduce piracy. But I'd like to ask your personal experience. I mean, today the name Joke Silva on the script will make any reader perk up and pay a bit more attention. But how do you deal with that now? How would you advise up and coming creatives to deal with a situation where they have to share their work with potential collaborators and the risk of it being stolen instead? I mean, from your personal experience.
Well, what we do in our company is that before we share any work that we have, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, definitely. And we advise any young creative to do that. And what a non-disclosure agreement does for you is that it's supposed to protect you from any kind of intellectual property theft. We do that. Before we even share the idea. Once we get that, then we now share the idea. That's one of the things that we do. I'll keep it brief.
Excellent. Okay.
Yes.
So my next question is for Kwe. Kwe, would you say from your experience your experience has been like Peter's, from your experience with pitching Inspector K from your early days when it was still novel and just a script? How did you balance the need to share the idea with collaborators and protect it from being copied?
Okay, so for me, Inspector K was actually not my idea. So I haven't had to struggle with the intellectual property issues that would possibly arise from that, right? It was something that was created out of a skit that I had been in. So the people that invited me to do the skit figured, you know what, we could make a show out of this. So I actually don't have any real ownership with regards to Inspector K. But generally for me, I think a lot of what I do as well is content creation. And so far, luckily for me, I haven't particularly had to share my ideas. I think about it in my head, I script it in my head, and I put it out, right? Where the interesting thing is for me is that sometimes I have put out content, and maybe 2 days later, somebody puts out something using the same words I used in certain places. They basically copied what I've done. So, I mean, they might animate it, put an animation of a cat with a different voice, but it's essentially my content, right? And I look at it and I'm like, is this not what I just put out? And it's interesting because sometimes you might think it's little things and you shouldn't make a big deal out of them. But I'm wondering, maybe it's until we actually start making a big deal out of the little things that we can actually scale up and affect the bigger things.
Well said, yeah. I think we're leading up to that. So next question is for Tolu. So how do you at Kugali pitch a story without risking losing it? How have you come to deal with the need to impress your stakeholders with the innovative African stories that you're known for and the need to protect your work from being copied or stolen?
Okay, thank you. Let me just go straight to the point. I'll start by saying NDAs. You always have to sign an NDA before you start sharing any ideas. So, once you have signed a non-disclosure agreement with someone and you work on something together, then they legally cannot share that idea outside of the boundaries you have set within the NDA without any repercussions. And they signed the agreement. You can't just, you can't just say, okay, he's my friend, or, let's just talk about it. Even when they're your friends, you've known the person since like primary school or something, you still have to just do the right thing legally. Sign an NDA before you start any conversations. Kugali is a very highly collaborative company. So we pitch to larger companies. We also have people pitch to us. We actually have a form on our website where anybody can go and pitch an idea to us if they want us to collaborate with them on that idea. And that means that if they pitch an idea to us and we do not go with that idea, later that person can say, I pitched this idea to Kugali, and this new thing Kugali is doing is similar to what I pitched. So by pitching the idea to us, they are also at risk of us stealing the ideas. So, but then when you put certain disclaimers, when you have an NDA signed, and when sometimes you sign some certain contracts before you can get to certain phases of a pitch. So for example, I've had a situation where we were pitching to a company and they asked us to actually start developing a script. And part of the contract we signed said that if that script never went into production, then the full ownership of the story would be reverted to Kugali, meaning that even though we've written the script for them, if they decide, you know what, we're not going to put the resources behind this to actually create this thing, then the script is our work, and then the ownership would revert to us and we can do whatever we want with it. There's also certain types of insurance you can take so that, I've forgotten the proper name, something, is it indemnity insurance? Let me not call the wrong name before the lawyers here would look at me like, he doesn't know what he's saying. It's the legal guys on my team.
We're spot on, actually.
but you can take certain insurance so that when one person breaches the contract, then the financial the financial effect of that is you've already insured it. So you can make sure the person can pay the damages. I hope I've answered the question. Let me stop there for now.
Yes, thank you very much. Giving us a lot of good information. So my attention has been pointed to a little faux pas. We haven't run the case study video. My colleague will run that now so that the rest of the audience can join in the fuller conversation.
Pitch Perfect. Mr. Peter Barua and his team of 3 writers spent 6 months writing Fuji House Reloaded, a movie script dwelling on the comical occurrences of a young girl's life when she discovers how to travel back in time. The movie time travel movie was going to combine computer-generated image, CGI effect, and live action acting, a truly spectacular cinematographic experience and a lucrative venture for the whole supply channel through the cinema houses. When the script was completed in late 2019, they had several pitch meetings with multiple media houses. Unfortunately, all the meetings had negative outcomes. A year later, one of the media houses they pitched to, Wello Studios, released Palava for Lara Reloaded, a movie with the same plotline and CGI effects as Mr. Barua's Fuji House Reloaded. The names of the characters were all different, but the end scene, execution, and CGI effects of the movie were the exact same manner pitched by Mr. Barua and his team in Fuji House Reloaded. They well know that Palava for Lara Reloaded is an infringement of their copyright, but they do not have the financial support to hire lawyers and enforce their rights in court potentially for years. They are also aware that because the legal proceedings in Nigerian courts generally take so long, by the time judgment is given, the Wello Studios will have already profited from the exploitation of their Fuji House Reloaded. A year on, Mr. Barua and his team have written another script, Fuji House Orijo, and have embarked on a new round of pitch meetings. However, this time, Mr. Barua has sought legal advice and has taken the following steps to protect their new script. First, they have registered Fuji House Orijo as their copyright with the Nigerian Copyright Commission. Since the script has been written down on a fixed medium, it is eligible for copyright registration and protection under the Copyright Act. They have also decided to execute non-disclosure and non-compete agreements with all media houses prior to presenting Fuji House Orijo. A non-disclosure agreement, NDA, is a legally binding contract that creates a confidentiality relationship between the contracting parties. The opening week alone saw 500,000 cinema tickets sold at the box office across Africa and the US, the largest ever for an African-made film. As the Oscar nomination was announced, DN, the lead actress in Fuji House Orijo, received a barrage of messages flooding her phone on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. One of the latter messages was from Lagos Inland Revenue Services at LIRS. Congratulations, as DN, the one female lead Oscar nominee for Best International Feature at Fuji House Orijo, Naija takes over Oscars. More wins. We look forward to seeing you in year 2021 as you #pay your tax, the tweet said. Amidst the euphoria and celebration, DN thought little of at LIRS tweets. All the news headlines carried the success of Fuji House Orijo, documenting the box office takings at nearly 900 million naira. A leaked memo from the official distributors of Fuji House Orijo showed DN's contract fee on the project as 100 million naira in endorsement contracts from product placement companies and 25 million naira cash from the South African embassy in Abuja, DN's mother being South African. 2 weeks to the day of the film's Oscar success, the LIRS sent a letter to DN at her previous address in Surulere, stipulating the estimation of 29,792,000 naira in unpaid taxes for the period ending after 6 months. The LIRS advised DN to immediately make the payment to avoid prosecution for unpaid taxes. The letter was delivered to DN at her new Lekki address 7 months later.
Okay, so I think now we're all caught up to speed. We have unpacked a few of those issues, but we can proceed in our conversation. Okay. Next question.
Ido?
Yes.
Ido, I have a question for
Okay.
after the end of that's the final bit, or I don't know whether you're going to get to it about the tax, because when you don't even have to disclose how much you have earned for you to pay your tax. Yeah, I mean, in other parts of the world, and I'm sure Tolu, who is working with, I think he's working with Disney right now. One of the things that you know is that 30% of whatever it is that you earn is needs to be paid as taxes. We just finished a film with Disney in Greece, and it was part of the contract. 30% of what I earned. Let me be careful now. I'm not sure that it's 30 or 20. I can't remember. But it was immediately deducted from my fees. Do you understand? So yeah. I just thought to put that in.
Yeah, I mean, taxes is one of the issues that we will touch on. It's funny because I actually have a tax question for you. So.
Oh, okay.
But of course, as you've mentioned, various agreements have their tax obligations stipulated in them. In Nigeria, of course, we pay a myriad amounts of taxes. The ones that come to mind are personal income tax and, of course, your corporate income tax. Corporate income tax ordinarily is 30% of your annual profits. Personal income tax is slightly different, but we will touch on that shortly. So I will just go on to my next question. So this is an open question to all the panelists. Have any of you used statements of confidentiality in your emails or when you send work to your collaborators? Specifically, statements of confidentiality are words like without prejudice, or words to the effect that the information you're sending is meant for the recipient, who acknowledges that it shall not be used except as permitted by the sender. So words like that are supposed to have legal import. Do any of you use them on your emails, or have you used them?
Okay, can I jump right in?
Yes, please.
Okay, so obviously after that experience, everything was NDA, man, every single thing. But then there's a fear when you're just like entering or you're just like emerging. So if you have the opportunity to send your work to a big company or a big shot, say, this person finally has time to read your work. There is this concern that, okay, now if I send this Egbon an NDA, are they going to see it as an insult, or is it now further like a barrier to them even beginning to read my work? So that I beg, no send this one. You want to send NDA? Are you sure? Please, don't. This one opportunity is one in a lifetime chance. So, so there is always that caution behind the back of my mind. It's probably incorrect that an NDA is like a further barrier for them to now even push. Say, who is this one sending me NDA? He's not even a name. He's not even. I beg next. So there's that caution that I usually have when I want to forward stuff to. I mean, the bigger the personality or the company, the more the caution is. But in regards to even the projects I'm working on now with my peers, like NDA is one of the first things now that we sign, and it's like, the guy, be say I don't trust you, but maybe just follow protocol, maybe just, yes, so that's why I'm not really sure how NDAs work with like how the esteemed people receive NDAs from like newbies. Do they receive it with
indignation?
Like who is this one again? Other people are sending me their work, or I don't know if that makes sense. Like, how can we respectfully send these NDAs and people are not put off, by that gesture?
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
I think it's usually when people send me their work, one of the or tell me that they want to send me a work, one of the things I insist on, if they want my company to produce the work for them, or to look at the scripts and say what we think about it, I always insist that they register the work first before they send it to me. That I'm not going to take it, I'm not going to read it, you need to register. I always say that if you haven't registered it, I'm not going to look at it. When it comes to an NDA, receiving an NDA, from anybody, or even sending an NDA to someone who is considered big, anybody who rejects your NDA then does not, as far as I'm concerned, hasn't got good intentions. Because what does an NDA mean? An NDA means it's a non-disclosure agreement. So if you send something to me and first of all ask for an NDA, of course we'll sign it. And if I send something to somebody as a biggie, and I say sign a non-disclosure agreement, and when you tell me that you can't sign that, why am I? Why you're asking me for a favor and then you are saying 90, then I know that you really don't have good intentions. And I just moved to the next person. It's nothing to feel embarrassed about, because the repercussions are just so heavy. Do you understand? And it may not be the so esteemed person that even does the intellectual property theft. It may be somebody within the organization. So if the non-disclosure agreement has been signed, then that the esteemed person will make sure that right throughout the value chain, they understand that there cannot be any intellectual property theft. So it protects the person signing the NDA as well.
Okay,
that's what I
Exactly.
think.
I think we've hit on the first point of our conversation today, which is a lot of the changes we need to see are, first of all, cultural. So the difficulty or the resistance to an NDA, as you said, Joker, is a clear red flag. It's not necessarily a lack of respect, as Peter knows, but it's a difficult, an extra hurdle to jump through, which shouldn't be. And that cultural change needs to happen as part of solutions to our problems, even before we even come to more complex solutions like litigation. So it dovetails quite well. Sending statements of confidentiality show an intent from the sender. They don't necessarily create a binding agreement, but there is that clear intent. This is my work, and I do not intend that you use it without my permission. The next step is the NDA, which does create a binding agreement, a contract between the recipient and the sender, which closes the gap that the statements of intent have. So it's quite opposite that the conversation is going this way, because this is the truth. We need, first of all, that mental systematic change that I have to be able to send an NDA and expect that my work is seen and respected. So this is quite on the money.
Sorry, though, just to jump in here, just for people listening. So what you're doing, you are basically making a distinction between a statement of confidentiality on one hand and an NDA, which is like a step up and binds both parties, right?
See, I told you he's not just
sweet.
Okay, while we're on this, let me also just chip one more in. There's something called an IP release, which is where the person releasing is basically relinquishing all claims with regards to intellectual property. And where that can be useful, let's say Kugali, for example, we are making a comic and we write the comic, but let's say all our internal artists already have their hands full with projects. So we need to get an external contractor to draw this comic, as an example. So we hire someone as an external contractor. He's not our staff. He's going to draw this comic for us. And after he's done with this comic, he leaves. He's not really working with us. In that case, can this person come later and say, I drew this comic, I'm supposed to collect royalties, for example? But if we signed an IP release with this person, and that IP release says, we paid you for your work and we completely own all of it, you released this work to us, then, so apart from signing an NDA, and signing, an employment contract for that particular work, we would also want to sign an IP release with this person so that we have complete ownership of the art that the person created for us during the time when he worked with us.
Exactly. Thank you very much for adding that part of the arsenal, the IP release clauses. Essentially, and the other thing you mentioned, an employment contract would preclude someone that works for you from claiming that they own the IP when they are creating that work under an employment contract. So it does quite nicely close the circle. Thank you very much. Excellent point. My next question is actually to you, Tolu. So shifting a bit. So I would like to ask, with the benefit of both your Pan-African roots at Kugali and your international collaboration with Disney, have you at Kugali experienced a difference in the way we respond to intellectual property at home and abroad? For instance, is a greater premium placed on intellectual property when you work abroad as opposed to when you are in Nigeria?
I'm not sure if there's a greater premium placed abroad relative to in Nigeria, because I think the people we work with are, globally exposed, even if they may never have left the country. I mean, I'm talking about the people we work with in Nigeria, for example, because everyone has the internet now and you see things, you learn things. So I think we have people here who would not do any work or move beyond the certain points of the project until they see a contract or until we've signed certain things. So if we say, okay, you know what, we want to publish this comic with you, and you're not, let's say someone who isn't our staff, and we want him to start sending us his ideas, which we can start, going through the editorial process on before we've signed a contract with him. He's smart enough to say, I'm not sending you anything until you send me that contract that you promised last week. I haven't seen the contract yet. I'm not sending anything. So I think people here are very much aware. I don't think I've noticed a considerable difference between working with people here in terms of awareness or the seriousness with which they take intellectual property. What I will say I have noticed is that the bigger the company I work with, the longer it takes to get every little step done when it comes to legal things, because they are very thorough, they have more at stake, and if they don't do it properly, later down the line, it could cost a huge amount of money. So I've noticed, like, every time we're speaking with any large company, for each step of the process, it takes a very long time. And I keep wondering, what is the legal team doing that takes 4 weeks, 10 weeks? I find that particularly, but because it has started happening to me as well, like sometimes we take some time to get our documentation right and our legal rights before we send it to the people we want to work with. So it has started happening to us as well. And I've started understanding why it takes so long. But I think that's the only difference I've noticed. So not a difference in the way Nigerians treat it versus the way, let's say, people in the US treat it, but a difference in the way small to medium-sized companies treat it versus the way large companies treat it. That's where I've noticed a difference.
Thank you very much for that insight. So my next question is Joke Silva, and I'm conscious of time. So in my introduction, I made reference to your iconic legendary status, but this wasn't just embellished superlatives, but an actual acknowledgement of your contribution to film, TV, and theater in Nigeria, with epic works like Violated in 1995 and the British-Canadian production The Secret Laughter of Women in 1998, where your impressive performance showed once again your pedigree, the pedigree of your craft to the world. To earlier works like Uwo Lojo in 1993. In fact, my colleague Muiwa has something for us on this. So just a quick moment so we can see that.
àárín kankan tà láti bí ọ̀sẹ̀ méjì nílẹ̀ torí ọlọ́jà kò tiẹ̀ ṣe é ṣe. n ò lè pẹ́ n ò lè pẹ́ báyìí tètè dọ́hùn wọ́n wà ní àwọn tí wọ́n kọ́kọ́ dá lóhùn wọ́n kàn máa bọ̀ nílé ni. mo ń jáde ó lè mí àti ìyá rẹ̀ ń sọ nísìnyí.
ọ̀pá mi ẹ jọ̀ọ́ mo fẹ́ rí yín.
sọ̀rọ̀ wà ní.
bẹ́ẹ̀ ni sà ẹ rántí ìdánwò tí mo ṣe lọ́jọ́ sí fún yunifásitì lẹ́kọ̀ọ́.
So we see Yeah, allusion to your legendary status isn't just embellishment. You've done this for a good while and you've perfected your craft. So my question, how do you see these works, your legacy and the shared legacy of Nigerian film and TV industry being protected? First of all, help us understand why it's important to protect this. And secondly, how you would like to see this done.
It's very important. I honestly believe that it's very important to protect these. You know, one of the like a lot of the streaming services that are coming on board, they're coming on board with a lot of old time, you know, their a heritage of works in film, even some in theater. But unfortunately, we don't have that. And it's really sad because if you see, there are a lot of works from the 60s, the 50s, that we don't have access to now. And for the younger generation, for generations coming into the industry, even for the viewers, for the nationals of any country, when you have an idea of what has gone on in your past, that heritage, there is a sense of pride, and it gives you an idea of how far you have come. Nigerians, unfortunately for us, we have been very lax, all of us, my generation and the generation before, we have been very lax in protecting the heritage. Someone like myself, if you ask me, do I have a library of my works? Nope. Because people will come, borrow what I have, never return it, and things like that. But in the new dispensation, people are paying more attention to archiving. People are paying more attention to archiving. What the next stage, what we're trying to work on now, what we are trying to work on now, my generation is trying to work on now, to make up for that lack of archiving, for that lack of pay, for that lack of attention to archiving, is to see that the creatives within the works are better compensated. Now, what do I mean by that? There are too many creatives, you know. For instance, I was listening to Koye when he was speaking, and I was wondering, is there any, you know, in the contract that you signed, I don't know how many seasons of Inspector K that you have done, but you are the lead character in Inspector K. What kind of royalties are you getting from Inspector K? Do you understand? Is that being taken care of? Because it needs to be. A time will come when you will be my age and older, and by God's grace, we will still be working, but you will not be working as much. The works that you are doing now should be what should be compensating, especially when you are in the leadership cadre. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when asking me what would I like to see, that's what I would like to see. And you know, I'm working very closely with the Actors Guild of Nigeria to bring that about, and hope, you know, and we're in the works to work with other guilds as well to bring that about. So those are my better archiving, better compensation for creatives when we take care of the royalty system, the compensation system, not just for the immediate, but for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I hope I answered your question.
You did quite clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Wait, did you want to add something?
No, so it is what she mentioned about Inspector K is definitely something I have had in mind. I've broached the topic. I guess I have to be a bit more insistent. What we have spoken about is, I guess, moving forward, any sort of merchandising agreements that are signed or anything like that, I would definitely have a say in those sorts of conversations. But for the things that have been done already, yeah, I probably need to be a bit more insistent about those conversations, if I can.
But then where I would then come in is that this is something, because you are a creative in this sense, you cannot wear your lawyer hat, and that's where your lawyer comes in. Your lawyer has to have those conversations on your behalf, and not only your lawyer but your guild. So, which means that you need to join the guild because there's power in numbers.
Nice. For sure.
Okay.
Gems being dropped. Okay, I'm very, very conscious of time. I'm tempted to ask just one last question. We touched on it at the start. So this is the tax question, okay. So not only have you managed longevity in your career, you have also managed to cultivate a wholesome, lovable public image and private personality. While we have seen many performers and entertainers fall into various financial trouble with tax authorities, you have remained above reproach and an inspiration to a generation. How have you managed to stay clear of tax trouble?
Well, I haven't always been as Catholic as I should be with my taxes, but I actually used to be managed by Norfolk and Partners in the early years, and Norfolk Partners in the early years. And one of the things that May always insisted on was getting my tax portfolio in order. So I got into that habit, and over the years, my tax person just reviews everything, whether it's for the company or whether it's my income tax. Because we actually run two companies. We run the Lufodo, we run Lufodo Productions for drama content across various platforms, but we also run the Lufodo Academy of Performing Arts. So both those, and I guess it's also because having worked internationally, my husband has done a lot of work internationally, so he's also very particular. There's no, the tax system there is just so. Out in the West has been made so easy that you don't even think about it. So over here, one has tried to bring the same kind of practice, back home. We're better now than we used to be, or I should say, I'm better now than I used to be. I didn't used to be very good, but it's so. Without. It's I think the challenge that a lot of people are having is that what is being done with the monies collected, how is it impacting on our lives as creatives and as creatives, as entertainers? That's the next question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for a very candid answer. Unfortunately, we're pressed for time. We've had a very, very educated conversation. Thank you so much to all our speakers on this panel. Thank you so much for your time and for all the efforts you've put in to pushing this conversation forward. At this point, we'll close this session. I will attempt to take any, if there are any questions, before we move to the next session. I think that's a hint to just Thank you all again for this session, and we'll move on to my colleague, Emmanuel, who will be moderating the next session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Ido, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm sure I had a very enlightening session. So we'll be moving to the next session, which is on the music industry. Nigeria is at the forefront of the music sector when it comes to the continent of Africa. So we'll be delving into that, and we have panelists to join in the conversation. Before we proceed to walk us through, we have a case study, a video that will play. I implore you to fix your eyes on the screen and enjoy the video. Thank you very much.
Oluwatobiloba Daniel Anidugbe, popularly known as Kiss Daniel and formerly known as Kiss Daniel, started out his music career in 2013 fresh out of the university. He signed a 7-year contract with record label known as G Worldwide Entertainment Limited, where he released his first single titled Woju, followed by Yeba and another one titled Laye. He subsequently released his debut studio album, New Era, in 2016. With the album, he won 3 Headies Awards, namely Best R&B Pop Album, Hip Hop World Revolution of the Year, and Album of the Year. He was number 8 on the Billboard World Album chart. He then opted out of his management contract with G Worldwide Entertainment Limited in 2017 after being a part of the record label for 4 years. He purportedly exercised his right to terminate in November 2017 and established his own record label thereafter called Flyboy Inc. The legal controversy. Kiss Daniel was accused of breaching a 7-year contract and artist management contract he signed with G Worldwide Entertainment by leaving his record label and setting up his own. G World's attorney's statement issued to the public stated that Kiss Daniel had taken steps to appoint a new manager, solicited for bookings, and had continued to negotiate and enter performance agreements in respect of the songs from the album New Era and Evolution, including using the stage name Kiss Daniel without the company's prior consent and permission. G Worldwide Entertainment initiated a legal action to prevent the artist from performing any of the tracks recorded during the contract with them or booking any event with the name Kiss Daniel. The record label sought to enforce its rights over the stage name Kiss Daniel and copyrights of the song in the New Era and Evolution albums. This dispute with G Worldwide led to the change of the name from Kiss Daniel to Kiss Daniel. Conflicts with G Worldwide Entertainment. The artist, on his part, accused the record label of failing to provide relevant records or documents of account for inspection as required by the recording and artist management contract. He claimed that there were no records or documents shown to him indicating the amount of monies or royalties owed to him by the record label after several requests for inspections were made. This being a material breach, the artist decided to exercise his right under the contract to terminate by issuing a notice of termination of the contract to the record label. Kiss or Kiss Daniel. Undeterred by the legal dispute with G Worldwide Entertainment Limited and with his new brand name Kiss Daniel and record label Fly Inc., he released his albums No Bad Songs in November 2018 and King of Love in October 2020. This he did with several singles to his credit. The core of this dispute is the question of the ownership of the trademark Kiss Daniel. The dispute became even more acrimonious when the record label registered and obtained approval for the name Kiss Daniel from the Ministry of Trade and Investment, alleging that the continued use of the name by the singer amounts to an infringement of the company's intellectual property.
You're welcome back from that short video session. We have the pleasure of having two panelists that would join us in this conversation. The first, in no particular order, is Hadis Blair Olo, popularly known as Dija. She's a singer, she's a visual artist, she's a songwriter, she's a fashion designer, she's a humanitarian. She holds 2 bachelor's degrees in psychology and another one in biology. Her first single, Rocksteady, was nominated for Best Urban R&B Single at the Canadian Radio Music Awards. She won the award for Best New Artist at the Beat Music Award in 2008. She has also been nominated for several other awards. It's a pleasure to have Dija with us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Dija. Also, we have Adewale Shakmara, also known as Lotto Banks. Lotto Banks is a fast-rising Nigerian-born, UK-bred, independent alternative artist. He's a songwriter, he's a dancer. His biggest track, Mercedes, got a placement on a mixtape hosted by the American superstar The Game. Thank you very much, Mr. Lotto Banks, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll just jump right into it. I would like for Dija to make an opening remark. I think I sense you wanted to say something, but I jumped at it. You're muted. You're on mute.
Oh wait, oops.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I said I was paying my respects and saying hello to everybody. That I was saying that thank you for your intro. I said you don't carry me for head. You just did. Just don't worry about all the extra stuff. But yes, thank you for having me here. I'm really, really happy to be here and to be in the midst of such amazing people. Shout out to Lotto Bank and the legends of the film industry prior to this. So for me, the intellectual property conversation is very important. And like for me, I'm learning more and more into it. Like I have a long way to go. So I can't wait to take something out of this today, because I'm one of those sentimental people that has that needs this. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Just jump right into it. The video we just saw, I would start with Lotto Banks. I want to ask, was there a time where your trademark, your name or your details was used, for something that has to do with business, try to use your goodwill to maybe engage in the business activity, to ensure that it's spread across board? I would like you to answer that.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. I'm really glad to be here right now. I feel really excited about this topic because, it's one of those topics that doesn't get touched that much. But when it comes to my name being used, because I'm still very upcoming, I'm not known yet. I'm not a big artist, you get me? So I don't get my name used all the time, you get me? But there was this situation, there's something I noticed, yeah? And as an upcoming artist, it's probably gonna be different for me than for Dija. But for me, for example, there's this song of mine that I put on YouTube, and I try to make sure it was copyrighted so that no one else can use the songs without my prior knowledge. And do you know what happened? This song didn't even go as far as I wanted it to go, because anyone could have used that song for a viral video or used it for any other purpose. But because of that copyright I put on it, because I'm not big yet, because of that copyright I put on the music, it wasn't getting as much reach as I would have wanted, because I could tell that there was a way I could check if my song was used. And I saw different scenarios, like they were up to like 6, 7 platforms on YouTube where my songs were used to put, they were taken down. And that could have created more reach for me. That could have gotten my song as far as I wanted it to go. But because of the fact that I'd copyrighted it, I felt like I was a little bit restricted. So I think for upcoming artists, sometimes we care less about the copyright. We care more about going viral, but, this conversation is definitely one that we need to have, most definitely.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very good point. I would direct that question to Dija. I'm sure she must have had an experience, even though maybe not personal, but
no, growing. And honestly, for me, to be honest with you, like I guess I don't see myself the same way, as maybe that's a mental thing for different artists. But I learned a lot more in the last few years, and I've learned in the last God knows how many years of trying to push my music or pushing out there. And shout out to Don Jazzy for seeing me at the time I probably was about to give up or something. That was where I learned more about even splitting different things on music and because a lot of times when you're just trying, like he rightfully said, when you're just trying to get your music and getting heard, all you're thinking of is like, I beg, let me just jump on this, let me do this, I beg, just give me anything. And in a way, I think artists like myself, like I said, I'm sentimental, continue going this way, hoping for that, massive break that you now start gathering yourself and organizing yourself from then. Do you understand? You're like, let me just first get everything in, let me get everything out there. I had the opportunity of maybe coming into Nigerian industry music with the name I already had. So when I joined the label, they liked it already. So there was a lot of things maybe I didn't really understand. I didn't even know that somebody can own your name outside of, like, how can you just own my name that I gave myself? Do you understand? Like, what does that even mean? Or a name we sat down and put together. So these were things that I learned, honestly, being a part of a label. And legendary Madame Jacques said was, there are these contracts, and I hated having to sign contracts with somebody I knew, because it was like, I'll now be that person that will just lose this opportunity. You know what I mean? Lose this opportunity because I'm doing over sabi, or I want to do, you know what I mean? Like those kind of things, because you know how we are in Nigeria now, we don't have patience. We don't have, like, we like to, you meet people that carry body. So for me, it was more of my meeting my manager, a lot of people around me sort of assisting me understand, because I was very honest about what I didn't like or what I liked, but I didn't know very much how to. I didn't want to step on boundaries, because it's not like I had anything at that time prior that I was feeling like I want to go and be talking. But I think anywhere you are in this life, you're supposed to believe in yourself and believe in the dreams that you have. And that was something I just carried in my head. It was like, okay, last, even if you don't like me because I'm trying to speak on myself, then somebody else would. And, that's kind of happened where Jazzy was just like, I like what I'm like, you actually like what I'm doing? Like, what this thing? And till today, the last few years, you start getting royalties. It wasn't like the whole time. And this is people in the label pushing. There's people within the label going and trying to grab things for you and telling you have to copyright. Just like how Lotso said, I didn't even know about copywriting music on YouTube. When you're trying to post something and there's this place where you copyright and you're making money, monetizing. Last, everybody just want blow. Do you understand? Like, just want blow. You're not really thinking about, because you feel like after you blow, all the money comes then, but you don't realize maybe there were things you could have been doing along the way and be getting, maybe even if it's $50, $100, we're not thinking of accumulating. We're always thinking of the next day, very immediate gratification kind of thing. And that's where intellectual property, I think, is just best to talk about it. It's not even sentimental. It's just, if not for you, it's for your kids. I'm a mom now, so I'm thinking very differently. So being here for me is even more of a learning thing than me teaching anybody anything, to be honest, because I know I made mistakes along the way, and those mistakes showed me pepper, but we're still here. The idea is, and thanks to lawyers and entertainment lawyers, and because now I know why you guys charge so much, because it's tedious. But you kind of need it. It seems expensive, and for an upcoming artist and an artist that's trying to put their work out there, you need the extra money. So you're not thinking, I'm now going to use this money to go and tell someone to go and trademark this. You know, as of now, there's even a food app called Deja. So maybe you guys will help me. Let me understand maybe how we can partner up or how we do how we do this thing. But you know, being that I have an apostrophe in my name, is now I'm learning that all those little details mean something. And you know, I'm here to not only share how I've, you know, my experiences, but to also really learn and to organize myself better, to be honest.
Thank you very much for that. My next question to you would be, you've had several collaborations. We know that you are with the Maven Records. I would like you to walk us through the creative process of putting out a song out there. How does it start? You know, the process. We would like to know the process of doing that, who are involved, how it starts. Deja, thank you.
It sounds so easy. It sounds easy to ask the question, but to answer it is always, truthfully, I don't know, I'm sure people will connect with me, but for lack of a better term, I always believe in sort of music. You don't really choose music, music chooses you. Because you can always tell sort of, you know, where someone is either doing it only for the money. The money, you know, you make it, but it takes a long time. It really takes a long time. And sometimes now, especially with social media and different things, it's probably shorter, things going viral quicker. But honestly, just sometimes it starts with maybe a beat. Sometimes it starts with, I just believe it starts with like spirits, to be honest with you. It has to start with the spirit, but you know, probably a beat, or maybe already your crew of amazing people that you normally feed off of, or something like that. They drop a melody, or maybe you have songs in your head, because I always sort of put voice notes down and maybe send it to a producer and be like, oh, this is in my head, you know, all those kind of things. So honestly, I don't think there's like a start, finish. Sometimes it can start from the end and come down to the beginning. But the idea is that you end up with a finished product, and sometimes you might have 10, 15 people in the room. Sometimes it's just you and the producer. Other times it might be you, and then someone else now comes after and adds something at the end, and you're like, I like that. So these were things along the way that I didn't realize were all part of the intellectual property. But I always liked the idea of just splitting things with everybody, because now we day here, now you're inside the studio, yeah. So I was never really someone that was always fighting for always the bigger half of things. Not maybe they say my mumu is plenty or something, but it was always that with music money, it was always more fun doing it together. And the ones that you did alone, you still needed an A&R, or by the grace of God, someone, you know, popular touched your music and it became bigger. But in Maven, sometimes it was you and Jazzy, or you and Baby Fresh, or all teams, or sometimes it would be myself and Ricardo, or Tiwa, or, you know, like it was just like a very family movement. But prior to that, you know, sometimes I just really use my voice notes, and I look for the best person to help me produce. Sometimes I actually go online and try to write to other things online, which I learned, you know, later in my career, about just getting other beats and just playing around with it, because you're always trying to think that you didn't want to steal someone's sound or steal something, or it now starts sounding like something else. But you know, you're always inspired. You're not the first person to start it, so you'll always be inspired by somebody else. And I always learned that your lack of ability to copy exactly somebody else's work became your own. You know what I mean? Because you can never be exactly. But in terms of intellectual property, honestly, at the time I would start and finish a song, I wasn't really thinking of you know, exactly what was going to happen after it. I was just thinking more of like, God, these fans should like this thing. Once they like it, now them go direct this thing. You know, the fans are the ones, if they love it, they're going to push it, and then brands will follow you and all these kind of things, you know. And then in between, you start having little, you know, once you start getting out there and your name gets out there, you know, there's a lot of vulture mentality, or someone just feels like you got it easy, and you know, funny things start to happen when you start making money and start getting popular in music. That's when the business starts, and that was when I realized that music business and being a musician and having a love for music are two very different things. Your brand, I started seeing myself, and it affects your mental health after a while. You start realizing that you're more of a product than you are a person. And you have to start treating your brand as you would treat sort of potato that you're selling in the market, or, you know, different kind of things that you would do. And, you know, sort of the case study that you use on our brother, you know, Kiss Daniel and everything, it's unfortunate sometimes when labels and artists sort of have problems, because everything starts off with the family, you know, and in between, you know, certain things happen, but you always hope for a positive resolving of all of that. But this is why I guess we have lawyers and you know, streaming services that are coming now are helping independent and artists and labels as well, you know, being more organized. And then you have somebody calling you and telling, especially being part of a label helps, because there's always somebody that they've put there. But prior to that, I know how many songs that I did not submit properly. I probably have royalties hanging somewhere, you know, so it's a learning process. And I think with music, until you're dead, you just have to keep realizing that you're a brand that, you know, not to keep you, but you have to just keep reinventing yourself and keep learning the business and hoping for the best, to be honest, because it's deeper than we saw it on the surface.
Very much. You know, in producing a song, it takes a whole lot of hard work, and to just be so very sad if at the end of the day you don't get to reap the dividends of your labor. I'll go to little banks and seeing that we have several people that may join you. Like you have people that compose songs, songwriters. You know, there is in copyright we have the music production aspect, and then we have the sound recording aspect. So have you had an issue when it comes to perhaps using a beat, you know, that maybe someone else would say, okay, this is my beat, or having a music pattern that looks similar to what was already in existence? And even if you don't have such a particular experience, what do you think about it? How do you think of resolving such issues?
Well, I try to keep it original, to be honest. I try to make sure my music is original. I try not to buy it from anybody, to be honest. But the truth about it is, no matter how original you are, there's every chance that, you know, subconsciously you've picked something up from somewhere, someplace, sometime, you get me? But when it comes to working with other people though, I'm aware of the split sheet. There's something called split sheet, which apparently allocates, you know, everybody's percentages to everybody, so everybody knows their roles and what to expect from the music. So, but I've never used split sheet, and that's simply because I've been doing a lot of solo music for a while now. I've just been doing my songs by myself with a producer who I often just pay off, you know, because you know, it's sometimes better to just pay off right away rather than, you know, work with them and then at some point start having beef about who should get what and who owns what. You know, for example, now there's this guy I was working with a couple of years ago, and he came up with a beat that I thought was nice, and I came up with a song. The song was called Mercedes. That was the one that got featured on the mixtape that was hosted by the American rap star. And at some point, I decided, you know what? I'm not okay with this beat. I want to do something else. I want a different beat for this song. Although that beat inspired the song, but I wasn't ready to drop that beat for the song. So what happened was I went online, and luckily for me, I got contacted by a producer that heard my song and thought he would like to work with me. And then before you know it, I had my song on these new beats. He sent me a few papers to sign, to give me the license to the beat. And from that point on, you know, Mercedes was a hit. So sometimes, yeah, it does happen that, you know, you might get inspired by, you know, working with some person at a particular time, but just doesn't work out the way you want it to work out. And you're forced to, you know, go ahead and do it with anyone else. So that's why I said it's often better when working with producers and, you know, other people to have a split sheet. So everyone understands that, okay, this is what's going on. It's either you're getting paid outrightly, or we're going to share the money together. But when it comes to the copyright part of it, I think is a very, like I said earlier, for upcoming artists, to be honest, I feel like a lot of us do not really think copyright is priority, because we we want people to be able to go sing. I want you to be able to sing my song on Instagram. I want you to be able to use my song on your videos. I want you to be able to do some of these things so that my song can go viral. Because I bet if people weren't allowed, if it was copyright on every song, I think it would be harder to get TikTok, like people to use them songs on TikTok, Instagram, and the likes, from the little I know. So the copyright issue is not really my own problem. Copyright is one of the least of my problems, to be honest. I feel like royalties and who is deserving what is the most important part of it, because I feel like I put in so much time, so much money into creating music, and I'm not getting that back. So why would bother about copyright? The other day, I actually tried to trademark one of my slogans. I have like 2 slogans I tried to trademark a while ago, and I went online trying to search what company was in charge, like what corporation was in charge of trademarks and all of that. And to be honest, it was so rigorous. Like the process was too rigorous for me. At some point, I got tired of it, and I was like, nah, I'm done. Only for me to not learn later on that there are people you contact, the lawyers you contact for trademarks and copyrights. They can go about it for you. But it's like she said, like Dida said earlier, like I'm not going to spend money on copyright and trademark when I'm trying to promote and market my music, And so I don't know if there was a process, or there was a way that it could become easier, or maybe even become, less expensive. I think everybody would jump on the idea of copyright. But for now, it feels like trademarks and copyrights are for big companies and big brands. That's the vibe we get from all of it.
Okay, thank you very much. We quite understand how it feels, but then it's actually very, very important to copyright your works, because like the earlier session we had, Joke Silva spoke about keeping a legacy. You want to have something that you can be able to assign, transfer to your children or your children's children. You want to have something that you wouldn't know if there would actually be an action against you with respect to a song until it happens. Like the Kizania issue, look, he didn't know that something like that was going to happen until it happened. So it's very, very much important to have that. I would want to ask, from your understanding, I'll stay with Little Banks, please. From your understanding, who owns the songs you put out? Is it you, or is it your record label?
Well, I am an independent artist. I'm not signed to any label. I've never been signed to a label. So I'm of the opinion that everything I produce is my music, like belongs to me. But you did make a point earlier about the Kiss Daniel situation. Like his name was his name. I don't know who created the name. I don't know if it was the label that created the name and gave it to him. I don't know if it was his name from the start. But apparently the label were quick to trademark it. You understand? So like it's really important. I do agree that copyright and trademark is very, very important, because if Kiss Daniel had known, he probably would have jumped at it first before the record label did, But you see, that's where, like I said earlier, I think the bigger brands, which is the label, for example, at the time, they find it easier to do these things. They find it very easy. They are more inclined to do it than, an artist that is just trying to find a break, So I think, I don't know if there's going to be, some sort of platform in the future that, welcomes upcoming artists with different kind of sounds to get their songs copyrighted and trademarked for, lesser. But I know there's Koson. Oh no, it's no longer Koson. I don't know if it's still Koson, but I know Koson was in charge of the music part of it, But even at that, you can still, with all the drama that happened with Koson and everything, you see. So I think sometimes a lot of people really cannot be bothered with the drama as well, because especially when it comes to the Nigerian Copyright Association, I feel like they don't do enough, because piracy is everywhere, literally everywhere, and I don't know if the government is doing enough to even try and curb it, but it's still growing. Piracy is going far and wide, you know? So I feel like until something is done about any of that, I think many people will still be very nonchalant about the idea of copywriting and protecting their intellectual property. You know, that's what I feel.
Thank you very much. My next question will be for Dija. It's going to be almost the same thing with respect to Kiss Daniel. There was an issue where the record label said you are not permitted to use this song. You are not permitted to use this name that that's used while you were signed with us. So the question is still the same. Who owns Dija? Is it Dija or is it her record label? You're on mute.
Sorry, I always have to put mute so that I can, because I have kids, like my kids, they'll come and give you the lowdown here right now. Before I signed to Jazzy as Dija. So I was already Dija by the time I came to me. That was the stage name I already had for myself. And like I said, I guess it had embodied me as an artist anyways. And I'm just a coconut head. So, but yeah, I came in like that and it just fit me. And like I said, I didn't really have as much issues prior to not understanding so much, because Jazzy at the time was very welcoming, very open. Like I said, he's like a dad to us, that kind of piece. So I was always somebody that was very direct about the kind of things I liked and didn't like. Although there were some, obviously character things that I would like be scared to record in front of everyone. Everyone had to leave for me to, that kind of thing and whatnot. But yeah, in terms of my name and everything, it was, I owned my name before I came. So I don't know whether it was God that led me down that path or anything, but I don't think I was also in a place where I felt I had to fight for my name, outside of fighting to be relevant or, but you start realizing that you're already relevant. You're just trying to push out your, God-given talent. It's not just about God-given talent in music business. Everybody is really talented, to be very honest with you. Everyone has one talent or the other that if put on an amazing platform will shine. Given that the person that signed you really actually cares about you as an artist and a performer and development in terms of not disgracing their label, that kind of thing. But in terms of name, like I said, I didn't even know how important that was when I signed, to be very honest with you. And I don't think at the time Jazzy was trying to do anything other than develop an artist. It's now maybe with certain different partnerships, certain different, now like Lotto really said in terms of YouTube copyright, at the time when we were doing the whole, pushing the Dija Nation, when a lot of people were getting, signing on to follow me, I felt like that was around the beginning of a lot of streaming things, or around that time it had kind of started. So you can't really compare it to things prior to that, the way it was going, everything is in levels. So it's not like, the old artists were not doing it. In fact, they were killing it without even all these extra things that we're doing. We were even going online, we have all this. But I didn't realize how important the ownership of a lot of things was along the way. Like I said, I've always been that person who was like, I want to eat with my family. I want to divide everything. Even if you did everything, no worry. Now we day here. We don't sleep for inside South Larry. We don't day here. We don't. Do you get all those things? But you don't realize that almost some people day inside there where they set leg. Music. I don't know. As amazing as music is, it brings out sometimes the worst and the best in different people. I don't know whether it's the spirit that follows you or what. Money itself is the spirit, but these were the things that along the way, people had to admit me, Dija, you can't be too sentimental. Dija, every time you're forming family, every time it's affecting your work, it's affecting what you're going to bring back to the label in general too as well. It's not just once you get signed, as much as there's a lot that comes with that too as well. So, there were things that I would be doing that might be detrimental to not only me, but to the label as well, because you're devaluing yourself, thinking that it's by collaboration, it's by this, it's by that. So along the way, I got slapped a couple of times, with sense, to learn. But I think you have to fail at certain things for you to pick up and Kuku understand that, everything is because when you look at how traders work or business or even farmers or anything, it's really not about oh, you're begging or you're looking for. You came, God brought you to meet somebody that was able to help turn what you have into something more. And the idea is, how do you, I guess the monetizing. But when you meet like, straight up real artists and sometimes you need guides and everything to help you monetize what you're really doing. It's not because you don't want the money. It's not because, it's just that, like I always tell people, I'm like, for me, I guess there are certain principles. I won't kill another person to take the money. Do you get? So if not there, you won't reach. Maybe this is my loss at this point, but I am working my hardest to make sure I do protect intellectual property. I'm learning more. The copyright, like he said, to be very honest with you, at one point in time, I actually purposely tried to remove something so that it just at least let it get out there. But being part of a label as well, whether I like it or not, there are certain things that are copyrighted by the label outside of, Hadiza or Dija or anything. So you do have to have conversations to make sure that you're able to, push it further than where it is. And a lot of times, if you do sit down and have a good conversation and it's beneficial to everybody, you don't have problems. When it's not beneficial to everybody, you start having problems, that I find in music. But trust me, as I'm talking to you right now, I feel like just as soon as I think I know something, I don't know anything. Like when it comes to music, it's such a trademark, copyright, they're all very dicey and very one small thing. You just like, are you kidding me? Like, are you even trying to make me feel? Is that what you're trying to do? Or do you even really care about what I'm trying to, those kind of things. So a typical artist like myself would think, some things are quite shitty. Like, why are you even trying to make me? But then you realize, at some point, it's not really about you as a person. It's about the brand and what the product that you're. And they always say that music is a poor man's disease. So it's either you want to remain poor for the rest of your life, or you want to build generational, wealth. And you can't be greedy. Sometimes you might not be the one to eat it. It's other people that you fought for along the way, like artists that are coming right after you, maybe whether you did it or you didn't do it or something like that. And the ones before us to, I guess, not feel like they did it wastefully, So please teach me.
Thank you very much for.
Once a lot of things you split with the label. To answer your question, you do split because having a label, honestly, it boosts. Like I said, at the time now, TikTok and different things, you can just go viral without independent artists are even ruling, the airwaves and a lot of things because of just having distribution. You don't necessarily have to be signed. So shout out to everyone, coming out and making it more, each generation or each different year comes with something else. So like I said, music is ever changing. And the laws are it's just the enforcements, I didn't even know we had too many laws protecting us in Nigeria, to be frank.
All right, thank you very much. Would love to have a lot of conversations along this line, but time, like they say, is not our friend. Now, but we'll move over to the question and answer segment. So okay, now I think because of time, we'll be taking the question and answer segment at the end of the whole session. We'll be trusting that you would do very well to hold on and perhaps get your input on that also. We are on our various social media platforms too, so the conversation can continue on our various social media platforms. Thank you very much. At this point, I would introduce the next session. I will be calling on my colleague to come and take over from me. We are going to be talking about fashion and design, and I'm calling on my colleague Fulunho Olufe. She'll be handling that session. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the final session. To start off this session, we're going to have a short video to premise the conversation. Thank you.
The Gaia Dress. Kai Collective, an upcoming women's fashion brand, gained popularity in 2020 for their Gaia dresses. These dresses have a unique pattern designed to differentiate the Kai brand and develop a strong brand identity. The founder and creative director of the brand, Fisayo Longe, stated that for Kai, Gaia is not just colors, lines and patterns, it is soul and identity. We designed for women to feel their most confident. In January 2021, Boohoo, a popular fashion giant valued at approximately £4.3 billion, launched a collective which bore an uncanny resemblance to the Gaia print, which prompted the founder and creative director of Kai to issue a cease and desist letter and demand £30,000 in damages and legal fees. She also wrote a long social media post stating, Boohoo has gone as far as to copy our print almost identically. That is unacceptable. Seeing how much Gaia was being imitated, I obtained design registration in the UK and EU with US copyright pending. They will not profit illegally off of our intellectual property and most certainly not with a print that we have legally protected. The social media post has been taken down and the parties are now engaged in legal discussions with hopes of finding a mutually acceptable resolution. Design or not, an industrial design, that is, a new pattern reproduced by industrial process, is recognized and protected by the Patents and Designs Act of Nigeria. This includes patterns used for clothing fabric, and so it goes without saying that the combinations of lines and colors that make up the unique pattern of Kai Collective's Gaia dress can be registered as an industrial design in Nigeria. The effect of this registration is that Kai Collective has the right to preclude Boohoo from importing, selling, or reproducing design for commercial or industrial purposes. Passing off. Another possible action Kai Collection may have at their disposal is an action under unfair competition law. Apart from design infringement, Boohoo's use of Kai Collective pattern is likely to confuse consumers into thinking there is a link or collaboration between the two. It naturally raises a question of whether it falls under the legal elements for passing off or free riding on another's achievement. The common law principle of passing off protects the goodwill of unregistered marks. Passing off prevents another from presenting its goods in such a way as to deceive the members of the public that its products are affiliated with a popular brand of good in the same category. In establishing if there is passing off, the Trinity test adopted in Reckitt and Coleman Products versus Borden will be used to determine if the elements of passing off are present and they are. Goodwill attached to the goods must be established. Misinterpretation by the claimant must be established such that the public affiliated the defendant's goods with that of the claimant. The claimant must demonstrate that he is likely to suffer loss as a result of the misinterpretation. Does Boohoo's use of a pattern similar to Kai Collective design infringe Kai Collective industrial design right? What protection is available to Kai Collective outside design infringement? Is Boohoo passing off their intellectual property?
Thank you very much and welcome back to this session. Joining me to discuss this case study, I have Mr. Seun Atitebi. Mr. Seun is a bespoke designer and a style connoisseur. He has a BA in philosophy from the University of Lagos and he's the creative director and owner of the brand O by Oshun. It is a brand birthed with a vision to merge African and Western fashion, and the vision is love and nature. He believes that fashion is a universal love language, and he has designed for multiple influencers and comedians. Thank you, Mr. Seun.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Seun. Thank you. And then we have Mr. Femi Ajose. Mr. Femi is a fashion stylist, a consultant, and a designer. He's the owner of the brand called Cute Thing, a brand aimed at telling the untold African narratives while merging the gap between luxury and affordability. Before establishing his brand, he has worked as a stylist for multiple fashion weeks in Lagos and a fashion editor for a fashion and lifestyle magazine. He also enrolled in a fashion academy in Kano. Thank you very much, Mr. Femi. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
So my first question, if you notice from the scenario, a multi-million-dollar company actually stole her design. So my first question is for you, Mr. Femi. If you were in her shoes, how would you react? How would you go about it? How would you feel?
Good afternoon once again, and thank you for having me here. In honesty, it's going to be a very, very heartbreaking. It would have been a very heartbreaking experience for them because having invested so much in a design from the elementary level of putting ideas together, creating partners, up to the marketing, because that's even an aspect that takes a whole lot of money. You have to spend a lot of time trying to get it right to the right people, get people to know that product. Then one brand comes off one day and just kick it off and knock it off at a very cheap price or one ridiculous. It's a very, very heartbreaking experience, and it can be really annoying. And you want to go all the way to make sure that you get your justice for it. So it's not a good thing at all to get your product knocked off, because creatives spend a lot of time putting ideas together and creating products. Each product takes a whole lot of time to come up with.
Exactly. And what you just said is the reason for this whole conversation. You said each product takes a lot of time. So backing up from that, Mr. Seun, please, have you actually considered any intellectual property protection for your brand? Or is this something young designers don't consider, or they consider it later on?
Yeah, thank you. Basically, intellectual property is not something most upcoming, like let me use upcoming, or probably entrepreneurs, fashion entrepreneurs consider, because in this part of the world, everybody believes ideas are like sky, are like the clouds. You can literally pick up from someone without getting penalized for it. Even while you were growing, as a fashion intern, there are times that you have to you're given assignments back then, and then you're told to recreate something a bigger designer had done. So and at that point, no one felt it was like it was an infringement of someone's intellectual property. Do you understand? So it's something that has eaten deep, like conventionally, like it has really eaten deep. So I don't know, nobody takes it serious in this part of the world. And then even products that are intellectually protected, it's getting to the courts and trying to get justice for your ideas being stolen is like chasing shadows, like, because over here justice is nearly nothing. Like when you go to court and you want to settle matters, so you have to keep postponing, adjourning cases, and also people don't take it seriously in part of the world. Even big designers over here, I don't think nobody's protecting their intellectuals. That's why you see a lot of copies, and people copy something from a bigger designer and go to a smaller designer and ask, can you create this? And then you say, even if you can't, they'll say they can, and then because they know there's no consequences. So yeah, so it's nothing. No one is considering intellectual property here, especially young designers. No one is.
That's actually one of the questions I was going to ask. If you think young designers don't consider it because of lack of knowledge, or is it the courts, or is it just that the market just seems too hard to penetrate, or everybody's stealing from everybody?
According to me, there are two reasons, like, that I know personally. First, because people don't see it as important. Like, it's not important because why should I create a design and then protect it? Like, why should I create a design and put money, go and waste money and spend money and protect it because I don't want people to copy it. Meanwhile, at the end of the day, people will still copy it without your knowledge. And then secondly, I feel like it's the expense. Like, people feel, people know, like, okay, the idea is that people know there is something called intellectual property protection. Do you understand? But then people don't see it's not important to people. Do you understand? Like, people don't see it as important, and then they feel like because they've not heard about it and they don't have knowledge of it, like of how it goes, right? They don't bother. They don't bother. There are instances where someone will copy your designs, but then because that person probably stays in rural area, maybe like someone from Iju or Moeba who copied my style, and I'm here in Lekki. Do you understand? I can't concern myself with a young designer that I don't even know his name. Probably he has little social media presence, so it's not going to affect me in any way. So I don't see any reason why, even if my property is protected, how do I charge someone like that, to courts and then for intellectual property thefts? Like, how do I charge someone knowing fully whether they can't afford to go to court with me? So it's like mere shading shadows. It's a very serious conversation.
How about if it was a bigger designer that stole your idea? I would like Mr. Femi to answer this because you said so the smaller designer in Moe stole your idea and you didn't see it. How about if a big designer stole it? Would you feel the same way? Would you want to have regrets then? Would you want to take legal action if it was a bigger designer that stole it as opposed to a small designer? Mr. Femi, you're muted, please.
Hello. Sorry. I think I would like to start from the beginning first before I go to that point of whether or not to go to that extent. At first, when you're creating a collection, you go through a lot of process, like I mentioned earlier. You go through a lot of process, and you have more than one product in that collection. So when you start thinking about protecting those products, first of all, you don't even know which of the products is going to hit the market rightly, because you creating your work, you're just putting out your best foot that, yes, this is a body of work. You don't know which of the products is going to hit best. You don't know which one will do better or lesser. So, and it is not possible for you to protect each of the products in that collection. For example, you have a collection of about 20 products, and each of the looks have like little details, things that are individual products on their own. Are you going to protect all the 20 pieces in the collection just because you are afraid that somebody might steal the idea and use it for something else or something? It's not easy to go through that lane. So the only route that people pass through is, okay, when I see a product doing well and I forecast that it might be a major one, then you can now go further and wanting to register such product or trademark it. So moving on to what you mentioned, having a big company steal your idea, then you have to press charges against them. You don't have a choice because one, they are bigger and they have more resources than you do. Their copying design is a ripoff. Because first of all, designers, independent designers that are still trying to make ends meet, they're still trying to find their place in the market. Then one major brand now comes up from nowhere and just pick up your design from nowhere. And most times when they do this, they buy a sample of that product. They go through it and knock it off. Something like that happened between Chanel and a Scottish brand. They bought a product of that from that brand for research purpose. That was what they said. They said they're buying it for research purpose, only for the designer to see the product on the runway. So things like that have kept on happening time and over again. So it is not, I'm not saying that designers should ignore the fact that we have to protect our intellectual properties. But I'm just saying that it's just too much for independent designers. This is easier for major brands, bigger brands. They can easily do that without feeling any pain. But an independent designer that is still trying to put things together, it's not something easy. Thank you.
I guess it's similar to what we said in the music conversation. When you're small, you really struggle to, it's not your priority But I guess when you're thinking long term, it should be a priority, especially if you're saying a brand might steal your brand. If you're not protected, then you can't even go to court. So that's part of the problem. So if you don't have evidence to show that this is actually my design, then there's no, that's why this conversation is being had. It shows the need. There's actually a real need for the protection. And then also, Mr. Sheon said something about courts being so expensive and too slow, but there are actually other means of dispute resolution. So if you have the evidence to show that you actually registered this design and you're the owner of the design, then you can try arbitration. Is that something you've considered or you will consider going forward? Other methods of dispute resolution, or you don't think about dispute resolution at all? I think it should be something to consider. Mr. Sheon, please, what do you think?
Yeah, basically, I like Mr. Femi said, it's almost infeasible because for instance, if your properties, if your ideas are not protected, and then a yoga designer copies it, like you said, there are other ways, so you could go about it and all, but it's mere. I feel like personally, I feel like it's a mere wasting of time, because there is no point. Like your property the idea is not protected. I don't know. But then in the case of a bigger designer that infringes on your property and is still not protected, there are ways you could go about it. And then probably that's by first contacting the designer and letting them know that you're infringing on your rights. Basically they do not know you are not properly protected and all. And then I'm sure they don't want to be dragged. They don't want to be involved in a controversial matter and all. But then I feel like they feel like you reserve the right to your ideas. And then even if they are going to tap from the idea and all, I feel like you should be contacted. Even no matter how small the designer is, I feel like everyone should be contacted. Like, oh, hello, I need to take an idea from your designs. I hope you don't mind. Personally, if someone contacts me, a bigger designer contacts me that he wants to, it's a scene of joy for me. Like it's something, something good for me. Like that a bigger designer sees, accommodates my idea and wants to copy from it, or probably wants us to collaborate on it. Because I believe that's the approach you're gonna come with. Like I would like to collaborate with you on this, your idea. I really love how the designs are and everything. And can you show us how you went about it and everything? So yeah, so I think that's just about it.
So you said if a bigger designer contacts you, would you consider signing a non-disclosure agreement like we discussed in the earlier sessions? That's a very good way to protect yourself. Or it's not something you still consider?
Yeah, definitely. Usually, I don't have discussions with our legal.
Sorry, we didn't hear what you said, please.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So I don't think that's a big deal on my own part, because I don't have discussions without protecting myself, and then by tendering a non-disclosure agreement. So I think everybody knows that by now. It's a common knowledge.
Okay, thank you. How about trademarking your brand name? So if you're not willing to trademark your designs because maybe you're designing too much, would you be willing to trademark your brand name? Mr. Femi, your cute saying, for example, is quite unique. And in future, it's something people might rip off. Is a trademark something you think designers should consider?
I think trademarking is something that every brand should look at. Not just big, whether you're big or small. Your name is one thing that can be taken from you if it's not trademarked. There's reference to this from a new release, a new Netflix series that went on recently, Outed, whereas he sold his company and his own name was taken from him, and he couldn't even use his name for anything because it was trademarked by the company it was sold to. So every brand needs to trademark their names. That's non-negotiable. I feel like every brand needs to just trademark their name. It's just the part of protecting the product that is a bit kind of, and it's also important, but we don't have a lot of choice. We don't have a lot of choice.
Thank you very much. So from the scenario, she said she registered her design in America and in the EU, but you notice she didn't register it in Nigeria. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of the issues we've discussed, or she just was a lack of knowledge? If you were in her shoes, what would you do?
I don't think she didn't register in Nigeria. She must have registered in Nigeria because she's even here. She's here too, so she would have registered here in Nigeria too. Probably it was not just emphasized in the release that she registered the product here too. I'm sure she must have registered here too.
Thank you very much, Mr. Femi. Mr. Shonki, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. So I would also like to ask, moving on, how do you think upcoming designers should collaborate, should move ahead? What advice do you have for younger designers in terms of intellectual property in the climate we have?
Okay, so personally, I think, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sorry.
All right. So personally, I feel younger designers, should take every part of intellectual protection serious, because
Continue. It does not stop.
We can't really hear you.
That's the letter I'm looking for. Just bring her letter.
Hello?
No.
So they're hearing you.
They're not hearing you.
Actually, we can.
Mr. Someone's mic is on. Hello, Mr. Shell.
Hello? Yeah, I'm
Mr.
here.
Shell, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, please could you repeat what you said?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I said there was basically a time I was working with a big designer, like, and then we had to cop an idea. We had to cop ideas from a younger designer. Like it's not like this person is like not really that person is big, or not to the extent of the cop an idea at some point for our own collection. We have to cop without the designer's knowledge. Do you understand? Things like that are really serious. Things like that are really serious. So without knowledge, there are instances where some ideas from you without your knowledge needs to protect their ideas, basically. And then my ideas, most of my designs are not protected. There are even instances where a younger designer sends me a message on Instagram and shows me a copy of my designs that they made. Do you understand? So, like, it's really, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, yes. So when the younger designer showed you a copy of their design that they made, did you express to them that this was theft of your intellectual property, or you?
I didn't. At that point, I felt relieved, though I was disappointed that even the person had the guts to even send me a message, after copying my designs. But the fact that I was not protected, I didn't protect that particular design, so I had nothing to say. I just laughed over it, and then I was like, yeah, that's you. It was really nice. There was an instance when someone copied the design like a particular design by me, and then someone else sent me the design and told me that look at how they rubbished your work and all. So like I wasn't having it at that point. So then I've been thinking of copywriting my stuffs, but then I had no idea how to go about it. There was no one. I didn't feel there was any need to, because I was making money, and then even those that are copying, there are instances where people copy your stuff, but no one wants to work with someone who copied your stuff. They want to buy originally from you. Like I have some clients that says that to me, that there was someone offering them cheaper prices for the product I create, but then they wouldn't buy a copy. They would buy from the original. The person that owned the right to the patterns and the design and the craftsmanship in the work and the so yeah, I feel like now I know, I used to think I know about the business aspect of fashion and everybody, but now I think I know that I have to take every part of it serious. If things are getting really serious now, I create products for clients as far as Brazil, and then I don't protect. Imagine I don't protect products like that, and I send them out as far as that, places like that. So it's really dangerous. Like it's really, really dangerous. So I think now it's something. It's very important for everybody. Insofar you know that you want to go far in that field, in that particular field, not just fashion alone. In every creative industry. Insofar you want to go far in that field, I think it's really necessary.
Thank you very much for sharing, Mr. Sheo. Mr. Femi, please, do you feel the same way in terms of when younger designers steal your work? Do you feel hopeless, or do you feel like you should go after them? You're muted, sorry.
Sorry. I think I have a different view of this, because my main concern about someone copying your design is not really about, it's not majorly because of the financial loss or what I tend to miss out, but for the quality that has been diluted, because you have worked on your brand to the end that it has been known for certain standard. But when someone copies that product, you are 100% sure that they cannot give that same quality which you currently give. For example, a brand like mine that works with organic fabrics and all. If a brand wants to copy mine that didn't really know where I source my raw materials and all that, they'll just use any fabric they get. And that's like, and if it is sold to the market and someone else sees the product thinking it's actually from me, and that's like a dent to my image, because they will say, okay, this brand, they talk about sustainability and all that. How come they are doing this? Even say the quality it's bad, without knowing that it's a copy. So that's even bad on the image of the brand. So even if a smaller brand copies any product of mine, I'll still need to reach out to them and tell them to desist from that and stop it from whichever platform they're selling it on. Yes, I'll scare them with prosecution and all that, even though I might not prosecute them, except they desist from such but I will still need to tell them to stop doing that. Yes, it's fine to want to collaborate. It's fine to want to collaborate with brands, which is something I welcome so much with my brand, because I work with so many other brands. For several collections, I collaborate with shoe designers, bag designers, even knitwear designers, just to bring everybody together and just put ideas together and produce something wonderful that people will appreciate. So collaboration is the way to go. Copying is a no-no.
Thank you very much, Mr. Femi and Mr. Seun. You both just reinforced the fact that design registration is important in the industry as in all the other creative industries. And that's all the time we have right now. So we'll quickly go into the Q&A session. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. I'll now hand over to my colleague to round up. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, and thank you very much for joining us today. I also want to thank our very amazing panelists for such an insightful session. But thank you all for waiting to the very end. We have a couple of questions, and if we have some of our panelists still here, I will direct the questions on music. I see Dija is still on. If you could answer the question on music for us, we'd be very delighted. So the question says, I am not a musician, but I have noticed that some songs sound familiar. How familiar does a song have to be to another song that has been copyrighted in order for there to be a legal issue?
So,
You're muted. Sorry about that. I said in terms of, I actually saw that question. In terms of that question, to be honest, I think that all depends on probably, you know, in what manner the song even sounds like. Like there was a situation I saw with, you know, Chapman and Nicki Minaj. I think it's actually sort of like the same melody. There's also with that is, I think it's very dicey, and it's really up to who is suing and who is charging, because there always has to be like a certain amount of chords or progression, and you know, a lot of songs have very similar progressions, but honestly that's more even for someone that's more of a lawyer than even an artist within what it is that we're doing. I'm one of those people that I try to run away from sampling a lot, even though, you know, there's only so much at some point because everything almost has been done. It's just, I guess, how you deliver it. But in terms of sounds, I really do believe it has to be very similar for it to get to a legal point. I don't really know in some of the smaller technicalities, but if you have, like, let's say, you know, those kind of chords and things like that are very obvious, and a label will definitely come at you for that. And then it's up to the courts. Sometimes too, if you have a really good lawyer, you can get away with some things. And if you don't, then, you know, you pay up. But outside of that, I think it really has to almost sound very close to being identical before it becomes such a big deal. Because there are certain things that have similar progressions, but are not the same songs. So it's a very dicey area.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually going to say pretty much the same thing as you. It is a bit of a legal question because the area is so novel in our jurisprudence. We have very few situations where you can actually compare. But as everything legal, there's a structure to it. So the first thing is whether the person claiming to have been, the person who's claiming to own the song has been copied, can actually show clearly and plainly that the song has in impact being copied. So you've alluded to most of the popular ways that people would seek to do that. So they would be doing that by comparing the musical arrangement. I've seen in some situations where musical arrangement is almost identical, but one is slowed down and one is sped up. So they may sound different, but in fact, when you actually put them at the same speed, they're actually the same arrangement. So it's a question of how you show that. Exactly. So it's a question of how you show that plainly to a judge, for instance, that this is my song, this is when I created it, and this is how much of it I can show you has been copied. So it is a technical issue, but yeah, exactly. Like sometimes it's easier to see than others. Again, as you rightly point out, when you have experts on the case, you are more likely to be able to do this than when you are trying to do it yourself. I hope that answers the question. It's a bit of a technical area, but I mean, you have experts that actually do this day in, day out. Yeah, I hope that has answered that question.
Thank you very much, Duro. Lidra, there's another question for you. Do you write songs for other artists in your label? If yes, who owns the rights to such songs?
In that case, it depends. It depends on who you're writing for or with. Also, depending on the relationship you have. That's why I said music sometimes can be very dicey. You do share melodies, you do write songs, you do write verses for other people if you can, if you want to. I enjoy, like I've always wanted to sort of at the end of the day, maybe like, have a continuously writing for different people. But in terms of song ownerships, like Lotto rightfully said in the beginning, what we do is you do split sheets. It's easy to do split sheets. It's fair. You get to see the percentages. A lot of times you want to give more percentage to the person that will be performing the song because they're doing a lot more in terms, that's depending on the agreement. If for some reason there's promo, there's what else has to come with the song being out there, But yeah, it all depends on I always split a lot of things. I like splitting because it keeps it fair. But a lot of different people have what their principles are when they're working or writing for somebody else so it all depends. For me, that one I think it all depends on personally how much percentages you're willing to let go and in what sense or how aggressive you're trying to be or what your main goal for writing for that person that day is. Are you want to be recognized as a songwriter? Are you helping your label mates to just get a melody out there? Sometimes you're like, it's depending on what they want to give me, if they appreciate what I did, that kind of stuff. Or is it, so they do, is 25%, is 16%, or I'm giving you all this song and you just be the performer. So it's really not like a one set way. It depends on who I'm working with or what idea we're trying to get out of it. So, but in terms of writing, you always, if you have like your publishers, that's usually their job where, they'll fight the matter for you because some people, especially people like me, like I said, I get very sentimental. So in terms of business-wise, I've become a bit more aggressive along the years than I was in the very beginning, which is not necessarily in a bad way, but in a way of to protect myself or to at least make some money because it'd now be looking like you're doing a hobby as opposed to a business, which is what happened to me a lot. And that's from my end, not even some people will say, no, take it. I'm like, no, this one is just promote me, tell other people, all those kind of things. But along the way, when hunger catch you, now be remembering some things and some advice that you had along the way. But yeah, we've used split sheets in terms of that. So you all equally tend to own. It's like, think about something like Dorobuchi where we all had our verses. Jazzy was producer and was able to allow us to split the song, evenly across the board so that it was fair. So I tend to work from that end. Sometimes too is your godfather that you learn from. So I tend to work from that end. And then we all own the song together.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Mr. Femi, if he's still available.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so someone says, as a fashion designer, would you advise it's worth protecting some, if not all, of our creations? After fashion school, I was putting a collection together. So what's your take? Protecting everything, protecting the most important pieces, or protecting none, since we have copycats out there?
Okay, regarding that question, I think what the person was supposed to do is to have like a non-disclosure agreement with the person that was helping her while they were creating those spaces in the collection. But because they didn't have such things, that was what gave that that person the guts to steal those ideas and use it for another brand. But my advice is, if you're having anything with someone else, it's best to have like a non-disclosure agreement or contract that guides your relationship with that person. So whatever you're doing with me stays between us. You can't use my ideas for something else. You can't do this, you can't do that. So that at the end of the day, the person knows that whatever they're doing for you on that project is just for you. Even though even if the person is bringing is adding ideas to what you already have on the ground, the person can't take it out of that scene to somewhere else, because it's meant for your project. And once it's gone, once that's gone out, then that's lost on your side. So it's advised that there is a sort of non-disclosure agreement and contract that guides your relationship before even having to trademark or protect such products that come out of the work, of the collaboration.
Thank you very much. Dr. Vance, I'd like to get your view on copyrighting music and copycats. Still. You're muted, please. Okay.
Wow, I just figured it out. But when it comes to copywriting music and all of that, I think it's very important, to be honest. It's very, very important, because that's the only way to hold on to it if it comes to court. That's the only way you can actually, sue anybody for using your product without your consent. So I think it's very, 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 very important. And it's also important as well to give credit as well to whoever has been involved in, your music or in the process of producing it, because, sometimes it often goes a long way and encourages people, and also, lets them it makes them want to work with you even after that one. You know what I mean? So it's very important to copyright, but it's also important to make sure you give credit to who credit is due.
Yeah, picking up from where you stopped about giving credit, is it just in terms of payment or on the record? How do you go about ensuring that is done?
Well, there's something called work for hire. So if you're working for hire, then obviously I need to pay you, because obviously I'm hiring you for a service. But if we're going to be just working as friends or as collaborators, then it's very important to make sure you give credit to whoever credit is due. But even sometimes, if it's work for hire, sometimes it's usually good to give credit. There is something called, is it moral rights? Okay, because I've done a little bit of research about copyrights as well. And so I think it's morally right to give credit to whoever's been involved in production, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Very much. Thank you, every one of you who have waited to this moment. Thank you once again, our panelists, for a very informative session. We are very delighted to have had you on here. Thank you, our participants, everyone who has contributed, everyone who has sent in questions. We thank you all. And I also want to highlight some key points that some of our panelists talked about. We had Peter Oke talk about his experience with people he was familiar with and how, things went south, and the importance of signing non-disclosure agreements. We also had Joke Silva talk about the importance of that as well. It just goes to show that this these things are very important and cannot be overlooked. The salient things are they sometimes appear very insignificant. And when Deidre talked about being sentimental and in the beginning not wanting to always appear with paper and pen and say, okay, let's document, let's sign this and all of that, these points are quite important. And Jackie talked about tax. Well, we all know it's our responsibilities to pay our taxes. We are not sometimes fully informed on the method or the ways in which our taxes are being spent. Most times we don't see the value for it. We don't see what the government makes use of it. But nevertheless, the importance of paying our taxes cannot be overemphasized. Now, with the issue of tax, it's sometimes very overwhelming. Do you know who to pay to? Do you write authorities to pay to? Do you know when your tax is due? Do you know when a percentage of your tax of your income should be paid as? You have your personal income tax, you have your corporate tax for those who have companies, a certain percentage of your income for the year goes to taxes. So all these things are very, very essential. And to that end, you will need someone who is very skilled, who is very vast in that area to help you so that as you concentrate on building your brand, as you concentrate on your products, basically ensuring that you're going global, you ensure that you are not lagging in a particular area. Because at any point, they spring up and tell you, oh, you've been earning your taxes for a couple of years, couple of months, and next thing you know, your taxes are ranging into millions. So to avoid that, it is very advisable to employ the use of professionals who would advise you adequately both on your intellectual property rights, how to apply your intellectual property rights, ensure that your intellectual property is protected. Nobody wants to slave for hours, for months, years, and one day just find out that they're being ripped off of the intellectual property. So as far as your intellectual property is also protected, ensure that you are not erring on one side of the law by not paying your taxes. And once again, thank you all for coming. If you have further questions, please do leave them. For further information, our contact details will be displayed on the screen. We have our Instagram page. You can always send us DM. We have our emails. We are very prompt in responding to your mails. And thank you once again for coming.
Thank you, everyone. It's been very, very exciting conversation. This brings us to the end of our webinar today. Please follow us on our social media handles, where we'll continue the conversation about protecting your intellectual property. From all of us here at Norfolk Partners, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.